we need to talk about BDS versus GGS. Like, I kind of thought this could be an interesting clash, you know? You had Licorice versus Adam, with Licorice kind of in form, kind of not. You had Adam being unpredictable, kind of like the shy of EU. And then you had, like, the young Show versus the experienced River, the talented and accomplished Gory versus the underrated and half-baked talent Nook. You had one of the top Western talents in Crowny. You had one of the most overrated ADCs in Stixay. You had two talented supports in Huhi and Labrov. You also had, like, this narrative that these were two teams that basically just, like, cleaned up against the bad teams in the regions. And so, like, it'd be interesting to see, like, 4th seed EU versus 4th seed NA. And they were, felt like true 4th seeds, unlike G2 versus NRG, which won't be, like, true first seeds, if that ever happens. So, first we'll talk about champion pools. BDS are generally just harder to ban out. Golden Guardians would want Jarvan. He's strong on patch, strong for River, and they played it even when it was horrible. Rumble kind of counters a lot of Adam's pool, but like isn't a big deal. So like that was kind of a ban that you'd expect BDS to go for. Talia for Gory with a Vi was also a strong combo for GGS like throughout the season. Combos with Vi in general were like something that was very common and was still being used now. BDS were aware of this concept and banned Rumble and Jarvan all 3 games alongside some Huhi comfort picks in the Rel and Nautilus. In contrast, the GGS bans are actually a lot more confused. They had a lot less identity. Initially, they took out Adam's Olaf, but then they got clapped by his Crocs. They had to switch them around. And initially, they then froze out Xayah, but realized the Malco was more important too late. Xayah ban was also kind of confusing because I don't think Crowny really relies on the Xayah in the same way that a lot of ADCs do. Particularly ADCs like Stixay, who really rely on like a Xayah sort of pick. I mean, if I was personally drafting for GTS, I'd have tried to draft around Stixay's Kalista because it is his strongest pick. And they do eventually try and do that, but I think it was too late and they didn't really lean into it hard enough, in my opinion. They did ban Crowny's Ez in the opening game in the second rotation, but then they let him get it in the other 2 games and stopped banning against him almost completely, when it was a very effective champion, and arguably, I think, if you're scared of it in the first game, why are you not scared of it later? Especially after he shows it to you in the second game. So in game 1, BDS allowed the OP Ori. The draft for GGS as well played into BDS's style by being early skill dependent, whilst BDS had a lot more stable draft with the Ori and Maokai, and as you can see, it worked out for BDS. The Lee Sin ban from GGS also made no sense. Gory fell for a relatively obvious gank twice in like the first 6 minutes, but the second one he would have gotten away with if he didn't disrespect the Ori, and then Adam flashed on River as well and got River. Also, the first Herald, like GGS failed to respect Maokai ult, and the pressure from mid, and so they just lost 2 lives and the Herald. It was awful. I mean, the first GGS gank on Growny as well was like, it was executed cleanly, but they used so much to get the Sivir behind, and the Sivir was no longer like a factor when you consider how much of the expense they put into this. And then it bit them in like the first team fight where 3 died for 1 despite BDS having been caught by surprise. And then from that point on, it was basically just a wallet diff, and GGS were just never in the game. In game 2, they did give Elm a decent matchup, which is normally never a fun thing for opponents. But it did work out initially in their favour. The GGS draft was also a little bit nicer. The second rotation picks of Nico and Belbussy were a bit out of shape with the rest of the draft because Nico and Kalista played differently from them. And in contrast, BDS had a bit more of a solid comp that fit together. While outside of the Garen, like they were basically 4 players that wanted to do the same thing plus Garen. But Garen was there only for the matchup. The early jungle bully play out of River was like nice initially, but it was not that effective because of how the jungle matchup works. Like you don't need Maokai to be in the game essentially. And because Maokai was able to maintain pressure around his top side, well as like River was so focused into this jungle bullying stuff that he didn't actually take any advantage elsewhere for the rest of his team. And then Shea ended it at like 5 minutes, which should have ended the game, especially because of how far behind Nook was in mid, which helped Gory make the play that put them behind. The Nico trick play out of Hui was hilarious. It got absolutely screwed over because he was way too far forward in lane, and because Nook can count, which like NA players obviously can't, which started to provide a way back in for BDS. And then Hui and Licorice ended it at like the first Herald fight as well, which allowed them to continue this snowball back. Adam was unable to solo Stixay, although he did get traded back, and then Nook then styled at like 3 players, getting tons of resources of his opponents for 1 kill. The first Baron was insane as well, because why did BDS even like take it, and how the hell did GGS lose that fight? But like they were basically just a little outscaled, and it wasn't really a play that was on for BDS. So it was GGS were like a little outscaled, but it still wasn't a play that was on for BDS. And like BDS won it with ease. Soulfight as well was overly optimistic, but who cares, because in live the stream died anyway, and then the game just sort of ended. You can see it. Yeah, there you go. You can see the thing dying now. Game 3, the draft literally didn't even matter in this game. Like, I'm not gonna lie, BDS got their comfort picks and their power picks, which really helped them play. Plus, Cher's red buff steal into top gank was so much more effective than any of the jungle play that River had done in the game, especially as they compounded this advantage with ganks and secured first Drake. Adam started to kill Gory and escaped before Licorice could hop in. And they sort of snowballed from there. I mean, honestly, GGS were only really in game 2, and even then, like, you can see by the end of the game, were they really in game 2, because they were sort of just getting bullied. I mean, Sheo obviously dies here, but like at the end of the day, I think BDS won this quite comfortably. So yeah, that's sort of how NA speedrun airport run, and we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, NA sucks apparently. See ya.